Hey everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. This is update number 14 of my HO scale layout. I feel like every layout update looks the same because everything is kind of like very bland right now. All you see is Homosote, white walls, and wood. But I am making a lot of progress, and I would rather update everyone often than waiting till all this is covered and then you don't really see the inner workings of the layout. I always like to see that when I watch other people's layout videos, just so I can see what goes on behind the scenes. So with that said, let me just get to what I've been doing. The reason I'm scanning this area here is because I've been working mostly in this section, in this quadrant basically. And the goal has been to basically complete the connection of the second level to the helix. So I'm gonna kind of work backwards, but I'm gonna be taking you all the way through so you can see how it all comes together. So we'll start here in the helix. Obviously, this is where the second level ends before it goes up the two rounds of the helix and into the future third level, which has not been really started yet, just the initial cleat there to kind of give you the level of where it's going to be. But anyways, from what I did is for me to get from the plywood height down to the Homosote height, which is also where the cork is, I integrated one of these Woodland Scenics 2% grade starters. So what I did is, instead of going all the way to the bottom, which is this little piece that always seems to break, I already broke it. I broke it right out of the packaging. But anyways, I had to get the height of the cork to match. So this is like the, it looks like the 6th or 7th, section that matched the cork height. So obviously, going from this height down to there, it's a nice smooth transition because this is perfectly graded to get there. So right now I'm gluing it. That's why I have all this wood on top of the styrofoam. But it makes a nice smooth transition, and then the Homosote, takes the place of the plywood from here on. The Homosote is being it's being held up by this corner brace right here, which is another 1x3, but it's more like a fairing strip type thing. It's cheap wood, but all I need to do is just drill into it. I need to just make sure the Homosote is being held through these long screws. So with the four section spline, the 2.5-inch screws are plenty. They actually stick out the back a little bit, but it doesn't matter. So the screws going through 4 splines and then through the wood and out the back. And I don't want to hit this too hard because this is dry right now, but it's super solid. I mean, this thing is not going, I'm really pushing on it. It's not going anywhere. And so continuing on, the bracing now becomes just a straight shot of 1x3. And what I did is I sandwiched blocks of 2x3s in between, giving me space away from the wall. In other words, I'm trying to get the track away from the wall so that I can get some scenery back there. So this is the least amount of space I've been giving myself, which is about 3.5 to 4 inches, because I made the error in the past of putting the track right up against the wall, and then all I have for scenery is basically a photo backdrop, which didn't look terrible, but I'd like to have a photo backdrop and then have trees and whatever in front of it so that it blends in. It looks more realistic, especially when you take shots from the side here, so you don't see this like just flat picture behind the train. So by doing that, I'm not only pushing the track away from the backdrop, but also I'm keeping this still at a very low profile. so that when I put my fascia in front of here, it's not gonna, you know, I don't have like bench work under it and it's all clunky. Because in theory, if I did it the traditional way, you know, with the open grid concept like I have down here, I would have 3 inches under here. So that's like a 5-inch chunk, and that's without elevating the track at all. And that gets mighty close to bench work below. So that's why I went with like a very low profile approach. I don't know if this is something people do or not, but it's working for me so far. I hope it continues to work. But what the next step would be to add scenery in front of this, which will be very light. It'll be 2-inch foam that I can carve out or whatever, or even just cardboard strips that I'm just gonna plaster in front of this. But the way it's gonna connect is by having 1x3s or 1x4s flat, but tied into all of this. So I'll put plenty of screws there, and then bringing out these like almost like shelves, which will then, you know, at the end of them have either 1x1 or 1x2, just to give it a little height so I can put the fascia on there and follow it around. And then inside that pocket is where the foam's gonna go and all that. Now, the other thing I'm gonna try to do is also put a piece of wood out here so that I can glue and screw. I can screw the wood to the Homasote, giving it more rigidity, and then also screw from the bottom up on those shelves that are coming out, and then the glue from the foam. Like, it's all gonna basically get pulled in together, but it'll be lightweight outside and heavyweight in the back. That's basically what I've been doing with the second level. I hope that works. If not, I'm gonna have to use L brackets. That I'm not a fan of them, but I might have to. But what I have noticed, and I'm gonna just kind of transition to this, is that with this approach, as long as you have a turn or a curve somewhere, without having a very, very long straight run, the curves themselves act as like reinforcers for the Homasote. So this curve, for example, is giving all of this a lot of stability, including that also. Anytime you get a corner with the corner brace, like, you know, like I showed you before, like that, what's happening is that the Homasote is actually pushing that way. So it's like almost like grabbing at the wood, really, really stabilizing it. I mean, I was like really impressed with how stiff and sturdy that is. So this curve leads to a very short straight section, and then again it starts to curve again. Can't really tell from that angle, but as you can see here, so all of this entire block here is very, very, very stiff, and I don't think I'm going to have any problems, at least with the locomotives and the heavy trains running on them. It's not going to, you know, sag or be wonky or anything like that. The only thing I might struggle with a little bit is just getting the scenery in front of it, but again, I think it'll be rigid enough with those wood shells. On this side, I pulled the scenery or the track a lot further. This is like 6 or 7 inches away from the wall, and I did that for a few reasons. Number one, I was kind of forced to do that because of this bump out from the closet. So, you know, I wanted to get it in. I didn't want to get it too far in because I didn't want to interrupt what's going on down here either, where it like almost like takes away from that. So I'm only going to come out probably half of the distance of, you know, this benchwork, which is about 2 feet. So I'm probably only going to come out to here. You know, it's just over a foot, I think. But yeah, so I had to pull all that forward so that I can get in front of there without having to, you know, force the curve to be too tight or S-curve it here or whatever it is. This is a nice smooth run. You know, it's going to look nice with the train just doing that rather than, you know, all this twisty turny stuff. And especially with, like, you know, I feel like modern equipment, you can't get away with too many tight curves before it starts to look toyish. So that's what I'm going with. The other thing that's nice about this is that it allows me to put some kind of like spur here and maybe possibly put an industry back there if I want to. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but It's an idea. I've even thought of putting maybe helper engines there in case I'm running a very large train up this helix. The helper engines can just pull out and, you know, push the train up and then come back down and park right there again. But I don't know if I'm going to do that. Then moving on. This was a little tricky, but I finally got it figured out for the most part. So it's basically mimicking what I did here. The concept generally, just trying to back up here. The concept generally is that the problem is that I have to get access to that closet, and it creates a situation because, you know, ideally I wouldn't have anything that has to be removable here. But because I have to get access to the closet, you know, I do have to make some kind of access point. But I'm gonna have 3 levels, 1, 2, and then the third one's gonna be up there somewhere, very high. Here's the thing though, what's inside the closet is basically just my electrical panel, my sprinkler system, just to control, I mean, not really the sprinkler system, and my water main. So I can get there, this is why I left space back there. I can get there simply by just ducking under and opening the doors, and those doors open all the way out. Like that. So, as you can see, it's not a big deal. So I can get in there without a problem in case of a quick emergency where I have to flick a switch or do whatever. But I would say 99% of the times that I have to get in there is just for small things. If someday I have to do some major electrical work, or I have to replace something, or, you know, for example, we changed to Fios, and the Fios guy had to get in there to put in the new fiber optic cable and all that stuff, fine. This is all removable. But I want to install it in a way that it's quasi-permanent. And what I mean by that is that I want this to be locked in like it's, you know, like it's a bank, like a safe in a bank. Meaning, I'm gonna put bolts through there, you know, anything that will keep this thing from moving at all. I don't trust just a latch here, because latches have play in them, and that, you know, if the wood decides to expand or whatever, it's gonna want to move with it. So I want to bolt through. I'm probably gonna use those threaded inserts that you put, you know, they have little spikes, and you can just tap them in, and then that creates a perfect screw situation. So I'll probably bolt there, and then do something up here also. This is narrower, so I got to figure out where I'm going to insert my bolts. But the point is that I want all these levels to be almost like they're not removable. I want them to seem or act as if they were just permanent structures. So with that said, I had to, you know, get a little bit creative with this. So, you know, the bridge has to be a bridge that has some kind of real stability in the transition. So as you can see here, this transition is very, very thick. It's flat, obviously. And any bridges, meaning like model bridges that I'm gonna install here, this is gonna be another water scene, are gonna end up inside this box. So I'm gonna cut the wood here up to the plywood and over here. It's all attached from underneath and from the sides, obviously. And that'll give me my height. So this is gonna be a bridge that's, you know, inside the scene with a shallow, you know, height. It's not gonna be like a big, deep cliff or anything like that. But the track is gonna transition very well because of this. And, you know, if I had like just a bridge right up to the cork here, I think it would get very wobbly, especially if we're taking this out at some point. So I think I'm happy with this. This is, again, very, very solid. It's being clamped right now because I'm trying to figure out the alignment and all that stuff before I put the bolts through. But, you know, it's basically gonna go, the track is basically gonna go through here, bridge, and then same thing on the other side. So, you know, the cork is going to be right up to here, and then I'm just going to continue. The only thing I gotta play with is the height, where the bridge actually meets the wood. figuring out the supports for the bridge or any kind of like hill or whatever, so that the bridge doesn't sit too high or too low. And then the cork has to obviously, you know, transition into the bridge as well, into the bridge track, which I have over here waiting for when that time comes. And the same thing on the bottom. I explained that on the last video. But anyways, I'm taking a lot of time just to talk about the bridge, but it's important. So then once we get out of here, same deal. I still have my corner bracing, you know, and the support from this being tied in to that. So all I did here basically is just cut the spline straight and then, you know, attach it by using long screws and then, you know, bolstering it up here. But I am going to put wood on the outside as well, just to kind of overdo it and make sure it's braced. And then the seam is going to actually go like this, and then where the bench work is here, it's going to be the same. So it's 2 feet. It's going to go all the way to there. Now, the way I'm designing this is I'm building a box basically outside the spline. So I'm going to build it by itself, because this is just a straight shot, a straight run, and it's all, you know, flat. Out of 1x3s on the inside. Actually, I'm going to build 1x3s throughout the whole thing. But what's going to happen is those same that same technique that I was telling you about with having the pieces of wood coming out are going to tie into the box, and the back of the box is going to tie into the spline, and it's going to go through and possibly even into the wood if I can get long enough screws. The reason I want to do that is because this is going to be a yard, so it's just going to be a big rectangle at the same height as the Homasote, but it's got to be sturdy, because this is where the cars are going to be sitting, and locomotives and whatever, so that can't sag. Now, with that being said, back to my theory before, now we're talking about putting the weight on the outside. You know, this is already heavy enough, but the weight's going to be sitting on the outside, and it's going to be wood. It's going to be plywood on top, not foam. Although I guess I could use foam. I should probably think about that. Anyways, this is probably where I'm going to have to just bite the bullet and get brackets that just kind of, you know, come out, so that I have a little more rigidity. So what I was thinking is, after I make those shelves out of the wood, then I'm going to echo that with, you know, basically putting the brackets under those wood panels, just to give it a lot more support. And I think that'll work. But hopefully I won't have to do those 45-degree things, because I don't like them too much. Anyways, moving on. So again, same concept. I pull the track away from the wall for my backdrop. Another corner here, braced. I am going to have some kind of facility back there, so I'll have a turnout that comes out of here and just kind of goes straight out that way. And then just looking at it from this side, this is where the yard's going to open up, the throat is going to open up. So I have this turnout here, which is on the straight part of the S-curve here, that's going to come out, and then there's going to be another curved turnout, and then it's going to really open up from there. So hopefully it'll be, you know, pretty long. I can't get that many cars in there, because if you take a look here, you know, there's like 8 cars here. So, you know, I could probably just get like rows of 10, which is plenty, I think. You know, just for it's just like a transition yard, transfer yard. Yeah. So now just backing up here, this S-curve you already saw. You saw the mounting or the receiving block here, but I finished it all with the screws and all the 4 pieces of spline. So it's all single track. But what you didn't see is the plywood on top of the upper level. This was done, you know, months ago, but I finally got to put plywood up here, which, you know, turned out real nice. It's nice and flat. I just got to sand it because it's a little rough. You know, from the screwing, it kind of picked up the wood a little bit. But this is a very flat surface all the way through, and so it should transition nicely. And then the other thing I did was that I added cleats or support brackets, kind of like a landing platform here. This one was already there, but now, you know, when this comes in, you know, it's got the stability, it's got the support here, and it's you know, it's closing very smoothly without any, like, you know, without hitting this or anything like that. This little lip here I've had from the beginning, and I think that's because of the way this wall is settling. Because remember, I don't know if I think I mentioned it. This wall is just basically sheetrock because there's a pocket door in there, and so you can't put the 2x4s in between. There's no studs. It's just these little thin strips of wood that are holding the sheetrock up. But if I push on it, you can actually bend it, which I hate that it does that. But it's just this little section here, so I've had to deal with that. But anyways, my only concern is that I have to make sure that this settles before I actually lay track here, so I know exactly where it's gonna, you know, land. I have some ideas about how to solder the tracks in place, where I can adjust the track with like a metal plate. What I'm thinking is using this. I'm thinking of using the screw method, where you put the tiny screws onto the rails and then you solder them to the screws on this side. But then on this side, I'm thinking of putting a plate that's the size of a tie under the rails, side of those rails to the plate, and then the plate has to be longer, and it's got to have almost like long holes on each side, so I can put screws there, and then I could take the whole thing and just shift it back and forth in case this comes a little bit out of alignment, and then screw it down where you know, where it's centered. That's just, you know. So in other words, oops, I'm sorry. In other words, I would the track would be glued right until like the last few ties, and then that plate would, you know, would have a little movement along with the track. I don't know. I gotta see. I gotta do like a practice run. But anyways, so sorry about the focus. This is all done. I did run into a problem here because I originally, when I built the bridge here, I put the support cleat on that side, so that was like perfectly flat, and I forgot to put one on this side, which now is in place. But what happened was that when I designed the top part and I made those columns, I was gauging it on the fact that this was a little bit low, not knowing, because since I didn't put the cleat there, it was dipping a little bit. Like, I'm talking about a fraction of an inch. It's basically the thickness of this thing. So all these columns were set to land here correctly, while that wasn't there. So what ended up happening when I actually introduced that, when I actually put that there, it kicked this piece up a little bit. So, you know, now it's supported well, but what happened is by kicking that up, it also kicked this up, which then kicked that up. So it was like, you know, obviously like a chain reaction of problems. But the good news is that I have a way to fix it, because if you see, there's a little gap here because of that, you know, lift. So all this was actually measured perfectly. It's just that now it's the difference is this here. So I'm going to basically put that in there, which fits perfectly, which then creates the platform for the support for this. But then over here, it's a little too high, so that the plywood is not meeting the other plywood at the right height. Let me just show you that real quick. So if I put plywood here, you see how there's like a little gap there. So I have to make up that difference by putting the same exact piece of hardboard under there. So I'll cut a strip out and mount it under there, and then you get the perfect alignment. So that's an easy fix. The other fix would be to take all this apart, which I'm definitely not going to do, and try to lower it. I'm not doing that. So we'll just deal with that. I don't think the plywood is gonna. It's gonna be a little bit of a transition here, but it's not gonna be anything significant where the track's gonna like bounce or anything like that, or, you know. So I've seen much rougher things in layouts at work, so I think that won't even the locomotive won't even notice it. So yeah, so then from this point on, you've seen all this. This is gonna be all plywood, and then the double track starts there and continues. I stupidly ordered the wrong turnout because I had a number 8 left-hand turnout over here that I wanted, because I wanted a long turnout so that when the locomotive goes through at high speeds, you don't get that crazy like kick out. So this came out now, so I said, oh, I'll just order another one for the other side. I didn't realize that this was going to be on an angle. So yes, I could put the number 8 way in there and start to split there. But I would rather have a longer siding by using a curved turnout, which is a number 7. It's long enough. Here, obviously this is the wrong one. It's flipped upside down. But then I can make this turn a lot smoother into this section here and not waste, trackage by putting it so far in there. So that was basically the only thing. But I'm just gonna order that turnout on my next track order. So that's it basically. I did get a few new locomotives. Actually got 2 of these, but I got the same number by mistake, so I'm trying to send the other one back with it so I can get a different number. And if they don't have a different number, then I'm going to probably get an NS version of the same locomotive. But very, very, really well put together locomotives. I haven't test run it yet, but I'm assuming it's gonna be very good. So I got those 2, and I ordered. I pre-ordered a few more of the Gevos from Scale Trains, the new ones that are coming out. And I'm looking at a few more locomotives just here and there, some SD70Ms and a few others. But yeah, so things are shaping up pretty well. On update number 15, hopefully I'll have all the track already set for the main line because I had to stop here. So now I can continue all the track. I just got to get the plywood down on this thing, and hopefully I'll have the transition at least mocked up, maybe not permanent, but enough to just kind of get me through. And then cork and track all the way through. As you saw in the beginning of the video, I'm already kind of working my way this way so that I can meet in the middle somewhere. But all the cork is pretty much set. It should be dry in a few hours. So tomorrow I'll start chipping away at that. And hopefully I can get this train up to that point right there, up on the helix. And it's a long run. Oh, the one thing I forgot to show you is how it all connects. So basically, the way the layout works is we start on this main level here, and this is Binghamton Yard. So this will be all flat, and there'll be, a bunch of tracks that are just running this way. The yard's going to be curved. I just got to figure out where I want my main, if I want it in the back or in the middle or in the front. The start of the layout really starts at Binghamton. Now, here's the thing. Our lead, which is here, that goes down to staging, represents points south, like Pennsylvania or whatever. So as the trains are coming up, that's like if they were coming up from Pennsylvania. The thing is that it doesn't meet back there at Binghamton Yard. It actually meets the height of the layout at this point. So what I did to make it a little bit more interesting is that I'm going to basically continue this line parallel to the other Binghamton Yard exit. So it's going to be 2 tracks like this, but the Binghamton Yard is going to start climbing at this point, and the other track's going to stay flat. and it's going to be kind of like parallel to this until it gets here. I'm going to kick it out here. Then it's basically going to be in this area here, but at a flat level, and that's going to represent a bunch of industries. I'm not sure where, but somewhere south of Binghamton. And then I'm thinking, you know, once I get past here and I duck under through that point where that 2x4 is, it's going to be a bridge. I'm trying to figure out what bridge. It's going to duck under at a flat, again, at the main level. And it's going to go basically around the perimeter. So once it gets past the wall here on the other side, let me just walk you over there. This is almost like, you know, another part of the layout. So all of this territory here and here is all going to be industries. So there's going to be a lot of possibility for switching here. So, you know, as the train comes through the wall here, you can back in to the industrial park here. You can have industries here. I can have industries all in here, but eventually it'll all tie into here, which is the actual entrance to Binghamton. So, you know, it's my layout, and the only thing I saw that was interesting south of Binghamton is down by the Catskills and down by Bear Mountain, down there, the Hudson Valley and stuff. But there's no real industry. There's not a lot of stuff there. It's just a run up the river, you know, basically. So what I'm doing is, because I have license, this is my layout, is that I'm actually going to model some of the industries in Cortland, even though that's north of Binghamton, but it is a branch. So I'm going to say, you know, that you have to go through Cortland before you actually get to Binghamton. I know it's upside down. I don't care. All I know is that I saw some Google Earth maps of Cortland, and there's a lot of industry there. Holy cow, there's so many cool things happening there. And I want to kind of get the gist of that. So I'm calling this Cortland, and then somehow the train's going to jump magically down south to Binghamton. And then from there, we'll start the actual climb, which will be Belden, with Belden Hill, Belden Tunnel, and then from there it'll jump another 100 or so, or a few hundred miles, and I'll be up in Oswego or whatever before I get all the way up to Schenectady on the 3rd level. So that's the plan. I'll probably say the plan about 1,000 more times in my future layout updates, but it just helps me. It helps me to kind of think out loud with all this planning. All right, anyways, I'm going to wrap it up. All right, guys, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on number 15.